to another episode of What the Truck. I am your host, Malcolm Harris. It is Friday, December 5th. It is so good to see each and every single one of you. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Going to be an awesome show today, and I can't wait because ahead, we're going to have this for our on deck looking. It's going to be Corey. I'm sorry, I was about to say Clory, but it's the last name. Corey Klujsza is the VP with RXO, is going to be joining the show, as well as Jake Johnson. He's the Fleet Success Manager at RTA. And Colin Osborne is going to be in studio joining me representing Repower. A little bit about what we're going to be talking about with Corey. He's going to be breaking down the curve report. So we're going to dive into all the things when it comes to rates, spot trends, peak season stuff, everything. It's going to be awesome. And then Jake, we're actually going to be talking about just the hands-on experience he's had when it comes to fleets, as well as diesel tech, managing operations, and much more. And then Colin's actually going to be in studio. Excited to talk with him. He's going to be talking about all the things that the great team at Repower is doing. So going to have an awesome episode with 3 guests, and it's going to be magnificent. But that would not be possible, today's show as well as this month, without our sponsor at Descartes Macro Point.
Trusted by shippers and preferred by brokers, Descartes Macro Point is the industry's best transportation, visibility, and risk monitoring platform. Deliver confidence with real-time insights and automated alerts to keep freight moving and your customers informed. Less risk, more connectivity. That's Descartes Macro Point. Visibility you can trust.
And again, today's show is brought to you again by our folks at Descartes Macro Point. Every load matters when it comes to your reputation. That's why the world's top companies rely on Descartes Macro Point for visibility and risk monitoring. Keep customers confident, freight moving, and operations in sync. Descartes Macro Point, visibility that you can trust. Now, we are going to get to our interview and conversation with Corey in just a moment. But before we get there, I do want to let you all know that I think Chattanooga is the best freight city in the world. That's just me. I'm biased. What do you think is the question? And with that being said, I want you guys to vote right now for America's top freight town. This is some information that we need to know. It's pretty straightforward. You visit vote.freightwaves.com and you're able to get that information and see what is the top town in freight. And my guys in the back said that they had a oh my gosh. I did not see this at all. They said that they had a surprise for me, and this is this is it right here. Wow. Yeah, I want you to vote. Make sure you do vote. Again at vote.freightwaves.com. Guys, I didn't know you could make a black guy turn red, and here we are. That is awesome. Again, vote.freightwaves.com for the contest. It's going to be awesome. And now, before we get to Corey, I want to bring in a guy that is awesome, man. He's definitely someone who, in reading his bio, knows his stuff, knows what he's, talking about in the space. Let's bring in Fleet Success Manager and a man that I think is just incredible at the craft, Mr. Jake Johnson, man. He's the Fleet Success Manager at RTA. Jake, what's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you so much for being here on the show. It's good to see you this morning. Really fortunate that you took some time. So thanks again, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Definitely, man. So you've got decades of experience when it comes to fleet, from diesel tech to managing operations, and now you're helping fleets optimize with RTA's Fleet 360 platform. Let's dig in and just talk about the technology, in that aspect. Walk us through your background and why you're here today.
Yeah. So honestly, from my background to where I am, this was a journey, right? And never seen myself working on this side of the table. But with my experience, it has been an absolute pleasure and great time. So as you mentioned, I started off turning wrenches. My old man was turning wrenches, military, did motor pool, got out of that and started doing it for commercial fleet, and I just kind of followed in his footsteps. We took that journey. It tears your body down, man. Being a mechanic just tears your body down, and I seen that in my old man, and I said, I can't do that. So I did, I took my experience, and I said, how can I help people still in this industry, because it's an important industry for our economy. So I decided, okay, let's jump into the management side. How can I make an impact here? As a technician, I said, this is what I would expect. This is what I would want as a technician, and I just ran my fleet that way. I built the culture that I would have wanted, and made sure I led my people the way I would want to be led. Kind of goes back to grade school: treat people how you want to be treated, and so that's what I did. Feel like I became pretty great, very successful. Made sure the fleets that I ran were successful, always meeting our budgets. And then one day I got a call from RTA saying, hey, we think you'd be a great fit. And after some consideration, I said, I can't just impact one fleet doing this. I can impact a bunch. And I was bought. So
definitely, I appreciate that, and I want to talk specifically. Let's talk through rising cost and downtime, because maintenance, repair, fuel costs, they're all climbing, right? And downtime, I mean, it's hit budgets hard. What strategies have you seen that work best to control cost while also keeping these fleets moving?
yeah, excellent question. So downtime and cost, when you look at that, it's all data driven. And if you don't monitor your data, if you don't have a system that's capturing that data, you can't make educated decisions. So it all starts around having a good FMIS system, whether that's RTA or any other platform. There's a lot of great ones out there. But having a good platform to capture that data so you can make educated decisions is where it all begins. And then capturing the data, right? That's not just having the system, but actually putting in the work, making sure you're capturing those repairs, those downtimes. Why are you seeing those downtimes? Is it a supply chain issue where you can't get parts, or is it a technician shortage where you just don't have the bodies to get the equipment in the shop to repair it? What are those downtimes? Why are they being caused? And again, reverting back to that data, having that data driven information to make a decision on how to improve it is where we would start. The cost side of it, you always want to work with your vendors, have those good relationships, whether that's in acquisitions of the equipment or parts, wherever that is. We want to make sure we got those relationships and just really drive, um, again, monitoring those prices, who's, shopping around, create a atmosphere where there is competition. We get so used to, hey, I like this vendor, that we just stick with them. Well, that's not competition. At that point, yeah, you like the vendor, but they can lay out their price whatever they want. So get a relationship with a few vendors, right? And drive that competition, and say, hey guys, I can go here, I can go there. Don't get too comfortable in the market.
No, I could not agree more. And this is a perfect segue into my next question, because you were talking about data-driven decisions, and there's, potential lack of actionable data. Of course, is another pain point. And when it comes to, how can a platform like Fleet 360 help fleets turn raw data into decisions that save money, time, and headaches? Because it happens, right? In your statements that you just made, I mean, this is something that, if there's not an actionable strategy when it comes to data, more than likely there's going to be a plan that will not be successful. So get into that a little bit for us, Jake.
Yeah. Again, having a platform that captures the data, and then actually capturing the data. We could tell a story with that, whether that's to our acquisition team or to our upper management to justify the need for the acquisitions. We can tell the story, and you can see that story, and we can outline that into a chart that is readable by anybody. But capturing that data and having that available to tell that story will help us manage better, as far as if you got aging equipment or if you got parts that are sitting on the shelf too long and not moving, that all affects how we manage our fleets. So that data, that data and the technology, with here at RTA, we try to automate a lot of that for our users so that they're not spending that time behind the computer. They can set the system up and automate that for us so that they can have the time to go back and get in front of their people and manage their people in the processes. So really having a good software to give you your time back it's a big deal.
It is a big deal, and that was a piece of the question I was about to ask. You literally just answered for me because I was going to say, how do you approach integrating technology so it actually supports operations rather than complicating them? And you kind of hit the nail on the head right there with automation. But is there anything else that you'd like to add there specifically, Jake?
Yeah, absolutely. So not just automating, but integrating, right? Not one platform can or should do it all. We're good in our area, but there's ELD providers that are great in our areas. There's fuel providers great in our areas, and we want to stick what we're good with. We want to partner with those folks that are good at what they do, so that we can give you the best of each world. And that's why we integrate with our partners, and then we automate those processes on top of that. So, not just the automation, but the integration, having great partnerships in those lines. That's what really is going to drive us. So we can pull in those odometers, we could track that fuel cost and mileage. There's a lot more that goes into it for sure.
Awesome. Now let's transition to regulation and compliance because between safety regulations, of course, driver requirements and environmental rules, compliance is a moving target. How can fleet leaders stay on top of this without overloading teams? Because it's always front of mind. It's always something that is like, hey, like this is priority, but this is a balancing act that we play in this space each and every single day, Jake.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it on the head there with the priority. We do have a lot of regulations that we got to abide by, and they seem to compile year over year. It doesn't really loosen up. It just the collar kind of gets a little tighter each year, and really the priority, making sure that we understand those regulations, having somebody that's trained and understands them to the fullest. Not just, hey, a new regulation came out, but actually having somebody on staff that follows those, understands them, and helps get that message out so that we can not just react to it, but be proactive to those regulations and stay in front of them. A lot of times these regulations, when they come down the pipe, we know about them way in advance. Let's get in front of it and start doing it now so that when they do hit, we're already on the front side of that curve. So I think that's probably the biggest thing with the regulations is we know they're coming. Let's be proactive. And if it doesn't hit or doesn't hit when we expect it to, we're ahead of the curve anyway.
Could not agree more. I want to talk about trends as well as just insights from a strategic standpoint, because disruptions are here. I mean, this is something that is always going to happen unexpectedly. I mean, from delays to, just different things. Talk to me a little bit about how this is affecting a daily fleet for listeners that are not necessarily familiar with just how crazy this can get. And then also, how can teams proactively manage them and get ahead of the curve, to your point?
Yeah, so for trends, this is one that is ever evolving. If it's let's just take parts supply for example. We all felt the impact from COVID, unexpected, but it was real. It definitely impacted every one of us, from the fleet side all the way to consumers. Consumers weren't able to get the goods they were looking for, and they were wondering why. Why did prices go up during that time? Well, it's because the product wasn't available. Folks have to pay their team more to come in to get that product made. The materials cost more, so just trying to react to some of the unexpected. You put procedure in place before it happens.
Yeah.
One thing, for example, winter comes around every year. We don't know when it's going to hit, but we know it's going to come. So what kind of plan do you have in place before it gets here? Same thing with the supply chain. We don't know when it's going to hit, but let's prep and prepare and have a plan in place. So when that day comes, we have a guideline on how to react to that.
Jake, I absolutely love that comparison. I mean, it is like winter. I mean, it's like, all right, it's about to hit. Like, we can actually take what we can and prepare. So that was very, very well said. Talk to me about the next 24 to 36 months. What trends do you see shaping commercial fleet operations? And is there anything listeners or even people that are in the space really need to be privy to and really take serious over the next, I'd say, 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, I mean it's ever evolving. It's transitioning like we've never seen before. One of the things that we really see is the labor shortage in the fleet world. That's really going to affect us when it comes to the supply chain. If we can't keep equipment on the road, drivers in seats, we can't get a product from one place to another, and that's really impactful. So. One thing I will say is let's encourage our young people. Let's get them involved early. There's so many folks that they've been kind of molded to get away from the trades, and really we need to encourage our young people to get back into it. And that's where I'm focused is getting our young people involved again and get them to understand why it's important.
No, most definitely. That's a great segue to my second to last question. Um, Anytime a guest is on What the Truck, I really like to kind of have them share with, the typical listener that is younger or that's not necessarily, been in this space, some advice. So across your career, what's one operational or leadership lesson that you think somebody that's looking to be in the space or even that's currently in the space, whether they're a fleet manager, whether they're an owner operator, I mean, anybody, what is that one thing that you're like, all right, this is a lesson that everybody needs to know. This is like the first rule of thumb for myself.
Yeah, for me it was passion.
Yeah.
If you're not passionate about what you're doing, let's find what you are passionate about. And that don't mean we got to move on from where we're at. It just means we got to figure out how to bring that passion into what you're doing. There's less and less passion every day, and everyone, we look at these opportunities as jobs. I looked at it my whole life as a career, whether that was while I was turning wrenches or training to become management. It's really more of a career, and we've kind of gotten away from that. And that's something that, the lesson is to be passionate about what you're doing, understand how it affects people's lives, what we do here in fleet, whether it's government or commercial, it don't matter. Every fleet impacts the consumer, the end user, the society. So getting them involved and just making sure they understand the impact that they have, make sure they're passionate about what they're doing, get them that drive that might be lacking so that they can come in and have a reason to be there.
No, definitely. I think passion is what, actually accelerates progress. So, last question, Jake. Where can we find more information about what you and the rest of the team are doing at RTA?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us just about everywhere. Our website is app.rtafleet.com. It's a great resource. You'll be able to find all the information of what we do. We're also on LinkedIn. You can find our podcast on Spotify. We're everywhere.
Jake, thank you so much for being on the show, man. Looking forward to having you back here on 2026, man.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
you,
you so much. Thank you. That was awesome. And as we transition from Jake to our second guest, now joining us is the Vice President at RXO, Klujsza. Corey, what is going on, sir? How are you?
Hey, Malcolm, I'm great. How are you doing? Thanks for having me today.
Hey, thank you so much for being here, man. I'm doing well. It's Friday. I'm assuming you're calling me from Chicago. Is that correct?
Well, you know what? I'm actually in Charlotte this week. So I traveled from Chicago earlier in the week. We're down here doing some internal meetings and getting together as a leadership team. So I'm coming from Charlotte today.
Nice, nice. Well, I love Charlotte, man. I spent some time out there, professionally, and it's a great city. So hopefully, it's treating you well. And again, thank you so much for being
Great.
here.
Yeah, and hey, and if I can escape some Chicago cold weather, then I'm okay with that a little bit.
Yeah, I think you brought it. I think you brought it with you. I was just talking with some folks here at FreightWaves. I'm like, man, it is ice cold outside, and it's like this dreary, just kind of overcast. So it might be your fault, Corey.
Yeah, well, hey, I tell you, I won't do it again to you, all right?
All right, I'm gonna hold you to it. Thanks again for being here. And I mean, you've been leading pricing and procurement strategy at RXO for a while, and your team just dropped the latest curve report. Drivers, carriers, brokers, they're all watching these numbers closely. Let's break it down. What are your initial thoughts about what you've seen, and the things that you've done with your team when it comes to this information, and just at a high level, kind of break it down for myself as well as our listeners.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, we look to the curve, kind of really as that risk mitigation strategy to get a good understanding of where rate volatility is today and where it may be potentially going as you're kind of planning for the future, going through the RFP process, thinking about the procurement process. So it's a really important metric that we watch in the way that freight volatility and rate volatility in the market moves. So what we do is we track the year over year percent change delta for line haul rates in our ecosystem. So it's all proprietary RXO data, and we measure it on a year over year basis. And really what we try and look at is again, the cycles, no cycle is the exact same, but they tend to repeat themselves and they rhyme. And you can start to understand, the underlying supply and demand components of that drive what could potentially be happening now and what could potentially be happening in the future as you kind of plan for what's coming.
Now, Corey, what was the overarching theme from a snapshot perspective of Q3? I know we're in Q4, but just looking at what's happened, I mean, was it more so seasonal, or was it just, I guess, structural that, some of this delta actually happened?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. But, when we look at it, we started to see some green shoots around this time last year in which the curve was kind of, peaking and going to double digit increases year over year. And then, what really started to happen in Q3 is we really started to see those demand headwinds kind of rear its head. And, we're now on 3 quarters of still an inflationary environment, but a decelerating environment in which we're only up about 1.8 or almost 2% year over year. So a relatively flat market, but Q3 was really one of those, situations where towards the back part of the quarter, I think we kind of got through that tariff and Liberation Day, and then the demand headwind started to rear its head. So the market wasn't able to gain momentum from a rate standpoint moving forward through kind of that, July 4th and into the Q3. You might think of back to school season or some of those different things that play out in the quarter, but really kind of a muted, rate volatility from a rate volatility standpoint, a muted kind of, part of the cycle.
Now, Corey, we're in the thick of it, and I want to, talk through peak season. What are some initial thoughts that, of course, this is the talk and, the vision that everybody's having right now. Talk to me a little bit about peak season and the impacts that you've seen so far when it comes to this report and what you and the rest of the team have seen as well.
Yeah, I think, the early indications for when we were, going into peak season, and you think about kind of that starting, early November and kind of ramping up through Thanksgiving to Black Friday and all of those different things. We had an outlook that this would be a relatively calm and muted peak season. And I think for the most part, that's played out. But Malcolm, I got to tell you, the last, couple days coming off of this Thanksgiving break, things have been a little interesting. We started to see kind of rates pick up a little bit earlier than they did last year. I think last year rates only, started to accelerate kind of around, December 15th. We're only a few weeks away from that, but, towards and into Christmas. And that was when we really started to see the acceleration. We're kind of seeing some things happen this week. That's kind of, an early indication that maybe this thing is slightly outperforming. I'm not saying, there's still the demand headwinds that are there. But we're starting to hear some things that volume is potentially up a little bit more than what people thought. I still think overall, when you think about the entire peak season picture, it's still a pretty flat, to maybe slightly up environment towards the back part of this month. But that's kind of where we're seeing peak season right now. Obviously, we've got 3 weeks here before we end the year and see what that takes us and see some acceleration. But we're starting to see some of those freight KPIs, come in from a tender rejection rate and some of these things that are happening a little bit sooner than they were last year. But I still think overall with consumer sentiment that's out there and the demand headwinds that are there, it's been a pretty flattish peak season, which is what I think most people were anticipating at this time.
Definitely. Now, I want to transition and talk contract versus spot because, you've done this for a very long time. This is a dance that we constantly play. Break down, what are you seeing right now in the spot market, as well as the gaps that you're kind of seeing from a contract standpoint, just across the board? It doesn't necessarily have to be, of course, RXO, and, want to be mindful of that, but also just across the board, what are you seeing now, contract versus spot?
Yeah, and this is a key metric for us, and I think it's a key metric for a lot of people in the industry. We continue to see spot moving at a discount to contract, and the way that we measure it, I want to be careful in the way that we always talk about it. There are two different data sets within our internal ecosystem, the way that we think about our contract book and our spot book. But right now, spot continues to move at a discount. And in reality, we don't really start to see rate volatility in the market and, kind of those service issues and the routing guide compliance start to break down until spot is moving at a premium to contract. So it's a key metric. We usually start to see once spot surpasses contract, we start to see some real, reaction and some real kind of service issues, some real routing guide deterioration problems, about 3 to 6 months after that happens. So we're not there yet. There's been a couple of blips over the last couple of quarters, but nothing that has sustained and kept this thing moving in the right direction. We might get there, by the end of this month. I think things are moving, but I think we really just kind of get back to that parity level. And that depends on, what happens in Q1. Normal seasonality kind of pushes us a little bit further down. But can we keep the momentum if we get there and move higher into next year, kind of given some of the supply constraints and some of the enforcement that could potentially happen in 2026, could that kind of push us higher and sustain us from the spot side? But the reality is right now, we're continuing to see that spot environment move at a discount to contract.
Definitely. Now, let's talk a little bit about, capacity and cost pressure. Capacity continues to leave the market while costs, of course, remain high. How is this affecting freight availability, rate swings, and operational decision-making when it comes to carriers and, brokers as well?
Yeah, that's been one of the that's been one of the biggest challenges, I think, as we look through this and kind of this prolonged kind of part of the cycle and even into a trough or just a flattish environment over the last couple of quarters. And we measure the curve again from a line haul perspective and a year over year look, but we also try and look at what's happening to all-in rates in the environment and how that is playing out sequentially and over time. So part of our curve publication, if you look at it, and yeah, this chart on the screen, I really like this chart. What we do is on the black line, we're measuring and we index all-in freight rates back to 2015. There's no really significant level to 2015. It's just kind of the middle of the chart. But what this is telling us is this is a measure, if the 2015 average is the 100 level, where we're sitting today and where we close Q3 is that all-in transactional buys in the market are only up about 16%. So when you see 116.3 there, it's about 16.3% compared to 10 years ago. And everything we know about the operating cost for the average carrier in the market over that time period, from our indications, is that those costs are up about 35%. So there is this big delta around, the pressure that the capacity is feeling. And that's how we've seen, and one of the biggest reasons that we've seen continued exits over this period. And until that changes, I think we're going to continue to see those exits, unfortunately, because the economics just aren't there. The operating costs are continuing to rise. And we think about maybe insurance premiums into 2026. Yeah. They're going up, and it's going to be continued pressure for the operating costs on the capacity side. It's been a big driver of why this thing is kind of playing out the way that it is.
Let's transition to the thing that keeps this report and all of our companies moving, and that's drivers. For the drivers listening, How does this report translate to pay, load availability, and daily decision making when it comes to being on the road?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is thinking about, how you're kind of optimizing or planning your week, and thinking about, sometimes if you're taking a risk on a spot load, what's the risk that you get left in an area in which now you're subject to a transactional spot buy coming back, potentially puts you under pressure. So I think when you're looking at it again from the overall kind of perspective and where national freight rates are, and the risk and the way that you're kind of thinking about and optimizing a fleet, or if you're an owner operator thinking about the risk that you might take a load that's an unknown corridor or lane for you, what are you subject to on the way back? So I think it's really important to think about where are rates at, where are they potentially going, and how are you kind of planning and thinking about either this week or what Q1 or Q2 might look like into 2026.
Now, second to last question, but before I get you out of here, because I know you said it's cold, and I agree, but you brought the heat to today's interview, so I definitely appreciate it, Corey. But any key metrics? Yeah, of course. Any key metrics that obviously it's all important, but operationally, if I'm a decision maker at whether it's a brokerage or whether it's a huge fleet or even a owner operator, what do I need to be really, really paying attention to in this curve report that you've discussed today?
Yeah, I think I'm going to double down on the spot to contract side. I think it's really interesting as you're thinking about kind of planning and again, I always say kind of risk management and kind of balancing that book for, how much spot to contract that you might have, within kind of your ecosystem. So really just kind of thinking about that and saying, okay, what kind of risk am I willing to take to maybe pull back or think about, contract rates potentially increasing into next year, spot availability and the capacity that you're kind of leaving there. I think that's just a really important metric. We're starting to see, again, a little bit of green shoots this quarter. I think we're kind of looking at another disinflation quarter where things are kind of muted, but I do think we end the quarter and end the year slightly higher than where we are right now. And if there's momentum going forward, it's just how are you kind of managing that risk into next year?
You've definitely teased 2026 a lot and heading into it. Looking specifically at 2026, what is the biggest thing that you see shaping the truckload market just for next year? I know there's so many moving pieces, and you talked obviously the contract versus spot aspect, but anything else for 2026 specifically that we need to be privy to that not a lot of people are thinking about right now?
Well, I don't know if it's not that a lot of people are thinking about it, because I do think it's on the forefront of a lot of people's minds. But, the enforcement of this potential, ELP and non-domiciled CDL going into next year, we feel strongly if there's some enforcement that really has some teeth behind it, this could be a big structural change to the overall supply that's in the market and in the industry. And I think, again, I've said it so many times, but, trying to predict government policy is a very difficult game to play, but you've got to be aware of the news that's breaking every time and how that's kind of playing and putting more constraints on an already constrained supply side and capacity side. What does that do and how early does it affect the supply? Because if that's going to come out and there's some teeth behind the enforcement, then you're really kind of looking at this situation where a lot of supply is left. You think about how much is left over the last couple of quarters. It's going to accelerate even faster, and the service levels and everything that kind of happens from that kind of domino effect is really, really important that we're watching into next year.
Corey Klujsza, Vice President at RXO. Corey, where can listeners and viewers find information about RXO and about you, about the curve, and just everything happening right now with your organization, sir?
RXO.com. We got a resource center that we put this out every quarter. We host a quarterly webinar, so encourage anybody that's interested in joining, to please reach out to me or, RXO.com, and the resource center will lead you there. So we push this out every quarter.
This was fantastic. Corey, thank you so much for being here. Enjoy Charlotte. Get down a little south next time. I got to show you around Chattanooga the right way.
Hey, I'll take you up on that. I appreciate your time, Malcolm. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, thank you so much for being here, Corey. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take care.
Yes, sir. You too. Again, Corey Klujsza, Vice President at RXO. That was awesome. And we're going to keep the theme of the C names coming because this guy coming up on desk right now, he is a Senior Product Manager at Repower. The Repower crew has some talent, and I think this guy will not fail us today. Mr. Colin Osborne. Colin, what's up, man?
Not much. How are you doing?
I'm good. How you doing, brother? It's so good to see you, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here. How's the week been so far?
Oh man, it's been really, really good. Yeah,
it's awesome, man.
You know, coming off of Thanksgiving and just getting back into it. It's great.
It's nice. How was Thanksgiving?
Oh, it was awesome, man. Yeah, it was really, really good. How was yours?
It was awesome, man. I went to Florida, hung out with the family for a little bit. So it was
cool.
It was awesome. My mom was super thankful that we could do a show virtually. So she got to spend some time with me and see what I do. She was like, "Oh, you're so cool." I'm like, "I'm really not, I promise."
Nice.
But yeah, it was good, man. Are you a turkey or ham guy?
I like a little bit of both.
A little mix.
Yeah. I'm good with either one.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, talk to us for listeners and viewers that want to know more about your background. Who is Colin Osborne? Where are you from?
Sure.
Give us the 411 on Colin, man.
I'm from here, and most of my experience has been in logistics. I've been in the industry since I was like 19. I feel like living in Chattanooga, it's kind of hard to not be touched by logistics.
For sure.
So came up in that. And I, specifically spent most of my time either, in really complex operations, both on the people side of the business and the tech side of the business. And so that's where I've spent a lot of time focusing, and more recently been focused on the tech side and how we can implement. I just get really excited about implementing simple solutions for really complex operations. And, usually it doesn't end up being super simple. It's sophisticated in the back end, but we're able to provide people the tools that make their job a lot simpler, which is great.
We've had Heather Williams with Repower.
Yeah.
She was on the show, and Heather and I were really close. And the team and talent that you guys have put together is crazy. I mean, from you to your leadership team, I mean, the things that Repower is doing is awesome. Talk to me a little bit about the tech side and the trailer finding solution piece. And, you've been able to really have your hands on a lot of this stuff, man.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to talk about that. And, you mentioned the team. The team is just, I feel so lucky every day I go into the office and work with really, really smart, talented people that have a ton of industry experience, and we're pairing that with really smart folks on the engineering side. And I'm just in the middle of it, and I feel really lucky. But yeah, so first, I want to tell people that haven't heard about Repower, don't know exactly what it is. We are we're the trailer people and the trailer platform.
I love that. The trailer people.
Period. Yeah, we have a two-sided marketplace where we work with equipment owners who have underutilized assets, and then we help them reposition that with a network effect on the other side of the marketplace where carriers can actually reserve those trailers and reposition them for them. And so that's a little bit about Repower. What we've been doing most recently is we've been growing really fast, which is great, adding a lot of trailers. What that did, though, is it added a lot more trailers to the marketplace, and sometimes we're getting feedback from carriers that sometimes it's harder to find what they're looking for. So we implemented what's called guided search, and it allows them to put in everything that they want up front, and then we kind of help pare down that list to get them in the exact right trailer.
Right.
And then we also paired that with an AI agent, which is, I'm sure somebody else has done this, we just haven't seen it, but it's really cool to pair that AI agent with the guided search. So you can, usually when you're searching for something, at least for me, when I'm on Amazon looking for something and I'm searching, there's questions that pop up in my head.
Oh yeah.
And so what they can do is while they're searching, they can ask questions as they pop up in their head to get them right into the trailer that they want, solve the problem that they're trying to solve. Or for our newer users, we get a lot of education questions around all right, once I do this thing, how do I pick up my trailer? When do I get it? All of that.
Yeah. Now, let me ask the market need, because trailer shortages are nothing new. Why do you think that now is the right time for this kind of solution? And what has changed in the market to make it more pressing for you all to capitalize on such a unique kind of take to this issue?
Yeah, I think, talking with some folks that have been in the industry a really, really long time, this has kind of always been something, like you said. I think it's the right time because we're under, everybody's getting squeezed in the industry. And I think when we feel that kind of pressure, the only way out of it is innovation. And so we're providing that innovation. We've provided that solution that puts another tool in people's belt that they can leverage.
From a data standpoint, I'm sure, I can only imagine what your inbox looks like. It's crazy. Talk to me about the data and how you're seeing, like, in real time, like, all right, decisions are made and impacted just because of, this obvious data and the trends that we're seeing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. With AI, if you really break that down, I think it comes down to they're just really good at finding opportunities within the data. And there's more and more and more data. And I think what we've kind of seen is there's a ton of data, and the humans that have access to that don't have the bandwidth to find all the opportunities. And so we've been able to give them those opportunities by giving them the tools, analyzing the data for them, and framing it in a way within our product that says, hey, you got a bunch of trailers here and you need them over here, and this is probably your best opportunity to do that. And then same thing on the carrier side. I was just saying, we're pairing it with an AI agent to allow them to find those trailers, and not just build, not just get a trailer for one load, but how do I actually think about integrating this solution into my business more holistically?
Besides trailers, talk to me a little bit about other operational pain points that you are, seeing carriers struggling with today, whether it's maintenance compliance, whether it's just general compliance, whether it's labor. What should fleets be doing to address these issues that I know you and your team see pop up each and every single day?
Yeah, there's all those things that you just mentioned. And then, I think what it all kind of boils down to when you really dive into those is that the industry is kind of just demanding that people become more efficient in every sense of the word. And so they have to look for ways to become more efficient. And usually, I said it earlier, but that pressure, you have to think about how do I innovate? And not just from a technical perspective, but from an operational perspective, what do I need to do? What tools do I need to look at to make my whole operation more efficient?
What's some advice from your seat that you have for carriers right now? You talk to them, you and the rest of the team, hourly, by minute sometimes.
Yeah.
What's some general advice you have for them right now, man?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm talking to our users all the time, and I think the folks that use us the most and our power users, POWR, no E, as we like to call them, they're really they're not just saying I'll go get a trailer from Repower when I need it. They're really starting to plan their schedule and their routes and build things based on Repower's trailers,
cool
the access. Yeah, it is really,
so
really
cool.
cool. Yeah. And so I think that's my advice, I guess, is start to think about it and plan around that. And that's how I think the folks that are really, really leveraging it that way are making big leaps.
Now, looking ahead, let's talk the trends because, I've talked, with Corey from RXO in the last segment, talking about just different trends that are happening that are going to impact the space in 2026. For you, in the next 24 to 36 months, what are things that you're seeing that just because this happens, this may or may not happen? What are some things looking like for you?
Yeah, I think, I think what I'm seeing kind of the writing on the wall is that I think equipment's going to become as on demand as freight. And so the players that are willing to adopt that and realize that early are going to have a big competitive advantage, I think.
Talk to us a little bit about small fleets, because it's just not these enterprise shippers and enterprise carriers that listen to the show. There's small fleets and owner operators as well. What's some advice that you have for them challenging, in this space as well?
From a personal standpoint, I come from family that has a lot of small businesses, and so I've got a heart there.
Yeah, man.
And so I love to see the little guys win.
Me too.
It happens all the time because what we've provided is they may not have had the team to actually and the operation to support equipment, and they may not have had the resources to get their own equipment, and we've kind of opened that door for them and given them that access. And it's just been really, really cool to watch that. And you see these people that have all the passion and the grit, and they have access to this new opportunity, and they're just they're making it happen, and it's really cool to see.
It's really, really dope. Colin Osborne, again, the Senior Product Manager at Repower. Colin, my brother, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
This was awesome. You're definitely going to have to come back in 2026, and I need to come to you guys. That's
Yeah, you do. Yeah. We need to have you down.
Yeah, I would love that. The road ahead, guys, for our show on Monday, we're going to have some awesome guests join us. It's going to be Rudy Namath. He is a VP of Sales at Velociter Solutions, is going to be joining. Matt Cartwright, the CEO of Magnus Technologies, is going to be joining the show as well. And Andrew Politikoff is going to be joining. He is the Executive Director at CVTA. I had a great calls with all three of them. You do not want to miss out on this. Enjoy an awesome weekend. Thank you so much to all of our guests. And for myself, Malcolm Harris, it's another episode of What the Truck. Like, subscribe, follow, tweet me, beat me if you want to reach me, all the good things. See you on Monday. Peace.